when you want to get corrosion off of aircraft metal without damaging the metal, it's usually very thin aluminum or soft aluminum. You don't have much to work with. Sandblasting or media blasting is a really good way of doing it. However, sand will go right through aluminum in about -3 seconds. But you can buy media at Walmart or Costco or whatever. A little yellow box with an arm and a hammer on it called baking soda. You can put baking soda in a sandblast nozzle and clean off all kinds of stuff off metal. And you don't do a thing to the metal.
So it's softer than sand?
It is softer than sand, but you can even sit here and blast your hand with it. It doesn't do a thing to you. But it will take corrosion right off aluminum, just like that.
Is that chemical or is it physical?
It's all completely...
And did you figure that out?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I decided to shoot it at something else besides aluminum one day. And lo and behold, the result was basically see the difference in color because I just took blue tape and put it right over that.
So the center square is the taped part?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And then you can see where it kind of says A2 in there.
Yeah, I see that.
Wow.
And then the other part, it is not 100% consistent because I have to do it by hand. But my thought on it was, if it works well enough, what's to stop from making an XY machine that just simply does it back and forth, right?
Right.
Pass it around. It's a bit dusty because it's been here, as you can see that. But you can't tell anything. It doesn't change the texture of this plastic at all. This is the difference between what I call Retr0Blast and Retr0Bright. If I did this on a smooth piece of plastic, it will no longer be smooth. But yet it doesn't change the texture of the texturized plastic. Probably, microscopically changing it, but it's negligible. Putting this on a scanner, you can't even see the difference in line when I zoomed in on it. So this was.
Tony, if you went over it again, would that pretty well eliminate the irregularities?
Yes. No, you can keep going. And again, this is another. This one was fairly yellow. Apparently, Retr0Bright doesn't mess with the badges at all. You just don't put it on it.
That's usually pull the badges off.
Yeah, or pull them off. But I saw some of the people just leaving it. But yeah, I'd pull them off. But,
Yeah.
Just for safety's sake, we pulled them off. We didn't know what was going to happen. It's our first batch.
On these, most of these plastics, the badges have a hole in the back.
Yeah.
What you want to use is a blunt object, preferably as big as the diameter of the hole that you've got, and push slightly. Don't go like this because you're coming right through the front of whatever's there, and you certainly don't want to use an awl or anything pointy because you will go through before you push it off. Second from that, a very thin flat screwdriver on the sides. Don't start doing this right away. Try to push it. This stuff's sitting up, it's floating on sticky. It's almost the consistency of tape, but it's a little thicker, so it actually floats on it. You can get it to move a little bit. Once you get it to move a little bit, then you can pop it out.
Does heat help? Does heat
Heat helps.
So is that blasted or braided?
This is blasted. Everything, all the plastic here I have is all blasted. I ran out of time. I actually wanted to mix some of the other stuff up and then do. And the light doesn't do justice on like this. You'll see on this one where I just drew graffiti on it. Where there was no question of what was going on here. You can see the original color and then the.
It's so great. How much is a sandblaster?
You'll see some pictures on here in a moment, but
Are they like thousands of bucks?
no. The handpiece looks like a big toy gun. It's got about a quart bottle on it. Fill it up full of powder. Costs about $30. You need a compressor
And that's it?
and preferably a blast cabinet. But if you don't have that, a refrigerator box will do. Because you can do it all in the box, tilt the box up, bang it, and pour the stuff back in the bucket and do it again.
Okay.
Or at least keeps it all in one place, and then you can dump it someplace because your yard's going to be white.
And you're gonna be white too.
Yeah.
You will be white, and there's evidence of that on here. So here's the pieces that are floating around now. The color is pretty obvious on there. I think that's the is that the one with the square on it? Yeah, that's this one right here. And that's before I did that, and then I taped it up. And I had done, this is the first part I even tried. I said, I tapped it right on the edge, and I said, that looks good. And then I felt it, and then I let it sit there for a while, didn't do anything to it. So then I got a little more brave, and I started going like this. Darn, this works. So I put the blue tape on there, and then went all around it, and then peel it off. And you can see the inside of that versus the outside. Another example being the Apple III keyboard bezel. You can start to see white powder all over the place in here too, but I've got plenty more of these images on here. Let me see what we got here. This is an example of I tried smooth plastic. I expected it to cloud it. In fact, it didn't even care about this. I think this is probably a candidate for chemicals. That's kind of smooth like most of that stuff that those guys were doing.
It didn't do anything?
Didn't do anything. It didn't even change. Didn't do a thing to it. All it did was clean the surface off real good. But that was well permeated.
Yeah.
But this also confirms something I thought. What's going on with, particularly at least with the Apple stuff, is coming to the surface. So by doing this, you're actually taking off all of that. Whereas I'm convinced the Retro-Brighting, you're bleaching it. You take it off and then put Retro-Bright on top of this. It's another way to get rid of the inconsistency probably. But you also get rid of the layer of crud.
Now, is it just the impact of the baking soda that it's happening, or is there anything chemical
No,
happening?
it's just literally impact. It's all
Just
it is.
abrasive, cleaner.
It's just like it's almost like taking Ajax or
Yeah.
a Comet and just going for it. But you can't do it with it.
Right, that chemical.
But no, that's also abrasive. That stuff's great. But if you start doing this with Ajax and Comet, you're going to end up with friction and heat. Again, sitting here with the air blaster going on this, it doesn't heat up. The pieces are just small enough. And this is this piece here. Blue tape.
Is that a hero
See what he's-
robot?
Hmm?
Is that a hero in the background?
No, it's a Radio Shack. Yes, you will age in this process. This is after I did some. You see the Corvus front end here?
Did you do it to the floor too?
You won't do anything to the floor. There's the front end of a Corvus drive.
Yeah.
It didn't have any effect on this. So this strip, again, I would most likely want to peel that off, but in all this testing, I'm seeing what does and what doesn't. I could take a piece of tape and just rub it in there, but it doesn't phase the tape.
It doesn't take the
Doesn't
tape
rip
off?
doesn't rip the tape up. Doesn't go under it.
That is amazing. So you could just protect it with this tape if you
Yeah.
really.
If you get meticulous with like a cuticle tool, push the tape into the edges of stuff, take a X-Acto and go around it, do some really good masking. I think the two processes can work. They work, well hand in hand. This gives you a nice shot at cleaning off the surface.
Have you tried any with screen printing like the 2GS logo?
If you go, in fact,
What is that, oxidization?
if you go quickly over it,
Right.
you're not gonna see it. If you loiter around, you can't take it off. So that's where.
But I
if
mean, you can with Retr0Bright too, so
you can take it off.
pretty
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah, because Retr0Bright's actually
Right.
going. It's attacking the edges. But if you are anal enough with there's an idea. If we can get those press-on letters made that exactly match,
Just print them out.
just put them on there.
Use like a vinyl cutter.
Yeah, vinyl cutter, and stick them over the silk screening, and then you can go all the way around the edge because it's like tape. It won't harm it. The only thing is, it's probably small enough to where if you sat there long enough, you'd go right into it. But
Oxidization.
so whenever I try
We really
a
don't.
floppy drive,
It's,
I thought I grabbed this piece to bring with me, where I went down half and half, and this one didn't come. But after this particular piece, I left it outside the back of that pickup truck for almost 7 months, probably until December. I did this in March. I left it outside. It hardly changed.
That's a
Another thing,
process, and it's just-
I am convinced more so.
Because you're taking the stuff out.
I'm also convinced more so. It isn't the sun that does this to these things. I have had some equipment that has been in dark, in a heat, and I've come out and it's been yellowed like crazy.
So it's the heat.
Also, these things. Fluorescent lights seem to do it. Used to have, back in the days when you had 2GSs in offices or in a school, and the light shines on it, it would never get this side, but it would always be ridiculously yellowed on that side, that kind of thing. I think I have a... Even this, see this tape crud was all across the front of this. See it's gone from there?
Hard. Oh, cool, it took the tape.
It just took the tape crud right off with it. The LED was in there, didn't phase it one bit, stuff bounced right off.
You think it would take off like marker marks as well, possibly?
Well, I'd hit it with alcohol first, but I suspect it probably would.
If it'll take off silkscreen, yeah.
Obviously, we're not going to be able to get this kind of stuff out of there. Well, no, this is happy asset tagging people. But you can clean it all out. Inside joke with this. If the person that posted one of these on eBay recently gets what they asked for, I have $15,000 worth of plastic.
I definitely got it.
But theirs wasn't the turkey version, was it?
Pay for KFest with 2 of those things.
The other one wasn't
You
the
did
turkey
not do the
version?
inside, right?
Free KFest for right? Yeah. No.
The inside doesn't look like it was this yellow.
The inside was barely yellow. I think I chased around there just for whatever. This piece that's on the screen now is this one here. The only thing I think it actually makes them a little more whiter than
They were original.
they were originally. But after a year or so, this stuff's actually looked like it's come back. And part of that also may be because I'm blasting in very fine white media into it, and I really didn't scrub them out afterwards.
I was gonna say, have these been washed?
They've been hosed with just the garden hose on the blast setting,
Well, that should do it.
but I didn't do anything else. But in the pictures, they weren't washed. See that? And this takes about 25-30 minutes for like that Lisa, that flat piece, this here. It's about 25-30 minutes of back and forth on that.
And how much baking soda?
I went through,
$75 worth.
Yeah.
I went through about 2 5-pound bags, and I did about, I don't know, I'd say there was a whole bunch of pieces there. It's probably about 25-30 pieces of this stuff. I just started going around grabbing everything that was loose, whatever I had.
How long did that take you?
I spent about 3-4 hours on this.
Of course, according to Antiques Roadshow, now that you've cleaned it, they're only worth a third as much.
Yeah,
It's obviously fake.
Right.
we'll get to that here in a second.
Reproduction.
There's a provenance on that in there?
Let's see what we got
Which
here.
one are the stones from France? The provenance thing.
How many hours are wasted looking on this stupid spinning thing?
Where's this?
That's out my front door. I was trying to. Here we go. I was trying to get sunlight on this thing to see it. It's probably one of those that we have. Oh, that's. Where's Ken? There's your picture.
Don't you hate when you touch shit buildings?
What happened about the movie?
Okay.
That's right.
There we go. That's right. Texture before. If we actually zoom in on these things. Still see the detail.
That's great.
It almost looks like a drawing.
Drawing of. What do you mean? Oh, just the way it's illustrated?
The lines are so clear.
And that piece was fairly yellow before, so.
That claim was absolutely.
With that, the other thing I figured I'd go over a little bit of is just in general, when someone says here it's original, or here this is a collectible item and whatnot, number of things that you want to look at. Every chip, well, I shouldn't say every, but most every single electronic component is going to have what's called a date code on it. It's usually a 4-digit number. It's going to consist of a year in 2 digits and a week in 2 digits. Sometimes they put it year first, week first. But you can look at it and generally get the idea. You see something that says 37, 77.
That's a little chip.
37th week, 1977.
97. There isn't 77 weeks, and there isn't. And they certainly weren't built in 1937. So you generally get the idea. Now, if it's the vacuum tubes we saw today, then the motherboards tended to have the same type of 4-digit date stamped somewhere on them. Example being here, this 2C board has a. Down here it says 8450. So right before Christmas, somebody was making 2Cs in Singapore.
Boy, what does it say?
And And a quick look at this, you can pretty much see that this has never been soldered on. So if somebody came to you and said, "Here's an original board," you're probably going to say, "Great, it is." Except the ROM has been changed, and that probably means there's a glob of solder right there, up near the upper. This is worse than YouTube. You know, you can see the glob of solder right there. So obviously somebody's upgraded that ROM. Now there's where the Antique Roadshow and the picky people come in. Has this been messed with? Did someone do a good job? But somebody brings you an original 2C, or they bring you a 1986 model and you open it up and the board says 84.
Well, even better, you have an original 1984 model.
In the wrong case. So as stuff gets older, in 2+ era, it's not uncommon to find gold chips and gold top chips and whatnot on them. Generally in the prototyping area, that's a lot of times what you'd find too. If this is, I don't think this is visible on here. Let's see. Without being able to plug this in, yeah. See the light reflection on there, and see right above it, there's a kind of a dimple. It's not that one, it's this right here. This chip actually has a raised spot on it. I haven't plugged this board in, but that's probably a good indicator of this thing is not going to work. When you look around at stuff and see a bubble inside of a plastic, it means something happened inside there.
Something got hot.
And usually though, it's in the center, because when these are, you can see the way the EEPROMs are set up. EEPROM windows in the middle, because all the leads reach to the middle. Generally the same thing here, but if it's on the edge, still could be a short, could be something going on.
I blew a crater in the top of a 74-125 in a just 2 drive by putting it on one pin off.
Yeah. So you get a little cool, just the top,
Yeah.
and you just hear it click, and then you. It doesn't work anymore, but it's a real good snap.
So how many other people have done that?
Yeah.
Purpose?
We don't have a purpose.
Oh.
I did it with a break, it just came.
This particular board being a prototype, doesn't usually have a date code on it. They just put hand numbers on them. But as you pass it around, you'll see that although the board is marked copyright 1981, the part numbers, if you look at the 4-digit date codes, like 8203, so beginning of 82, they were working on this.
And 5. This has something for 2005.
No, it's the 5th week of 1980.
Oh, right.
You got to put some logic to it, and obviously you'll always find older stuff because, like for example, you were asking me today at the electronics store. You know, I was looking for ICs. LS375s aren't easy to find. Half the time I call Jamco to try to get them, they don't have any, and then when they do, I want F375s. Well, good luck. I'm going to have to settle for LS because I'm not going to get them. They're going to have a date code on them, probably of 1990 or something. Maybe 2000 if you're lucky. They made far more of this stuff. The whole store is full of vacuum tubes on one big row because they made so many vacuum tubes that there's still enough. The question is, do they have a shelf life?
What is that?
Probably too fast for the assembly lines to stop.
Yeah, exactly. All of a sudden, oh wait a minute, we just found out about this. We got a shipload of them. So
I was looking at the Lisa frame. What is that board in your?
this is a 2GS motherboard.
Oh, okay.
This particular one doesn't have a date. Oh, yes, it does actually. It's not really. 7922 isn't something I will relate with 2GS.
Made the 79th week of 1922.
Yeah. Marty McFly bring this back?
So I've seen stuff off about a year though, because sometimes they might have
overstock.
Well,
essentially, yeah.
that board there has a 1980, he pulled out a 1980 date on it, but it's an 82 board. So
Yeah.
that's what I was, you know.
So sometimes
But
these things
we're
work.
not probably.
Sorry.
But if you're looking at it and you know the 2GS came out in 1986, and you see a chip on there that says 1989, but it's in a WAS box, what's someone trying to pull?
Somebody wrote laws on it.
Yeah.
Or
Or they swapped the board. Now, is putting a serviced motherboard in necessarily a bad thing? Well, okay, it's not original, but it's the right type of board.
Yeah.
You know, these things aren't exactly, I don't want to say,
You check serial numbers on motherboards.
no, there's no real way to do it. There's no database, there's no lookup, there's no registry. But
Going for a collector's item, it matters.
But if you're looking for a collector's item, you want something of period and era, and there's some people who want pedigree over functionality.
You just want functionality, you're running the danger. It might not have been done to very good specs. It might not have been done with the same standards as a real,
Oh yeah, who knows how somebody fixed it?
yeah.
Another thing is if you're looking at like one of these prototypes, like this Super 2, it's a prototype of the 2E. And if you see a chip that says like 8523 on there, someone's been messing with that board.
Someone's definitely been messing with that board, but that's a little bit of a different problem also in that maybe that board has been sitting at that engineer's place all this
True.
time. And he messed with it. Does that devalue it,
Where's that at now?
or is it? Yes.
Damn it, it's gonna work.
Exactly.
Does that depend on whether you can identify it as part of some project that he was doing, or?
Maybe they went back to, a lot of times these guys would go back to their prototype and use it for the next piece of, gee, I wonder if I can do this. Well, let me go get that. They don't think about it as something that they need to keep. They think about it as something they can screw with.
Yeah.
And then when somebody comes around 15, 20 years later and says, what is all this stuff? And then they make a phone call and you just come and get it.
7924.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's old parts that they had lying around that just, they needed to stop the board.
Essentially, yeah. And or they ordered those parts and that's what they got because, again,
In
they
stock.
made, yeah, this stuff was in stock. Another thing, I think a lot of the Apple II stuff on Wikipedia has been, the model numbers and whatnot, I think has been finally entered. People have put them on there. You can go look at like the 2Cs, A2S 4000, and there was 4100, 4020, I think they were, for the later revisions. Things like motherboards need to match the model numbers with the ROM numbers, things like that. All this, you know, looking at date codes, comparing stuff, looking for solder globs on the back. Are you getting something that's been thrown together, pieced together, whatever? But there is nothing, you know, another one, you might have a 2 Plus from 1979. The motherboard was changed faithfully at an Apple dealer in 1981 because that's what you did. You didn't know any better. Well, now you don't have the board anymore. Okay, but so you come across a board, you put it back in that computer. You put the right board of the era back in that computer. Inside of a two case, the old way you used to check out library books and they take the little stamp and stamp it on the card on the next available line. There's a stamp just like that inside of the 2 cases. It's usually this one. The 2Es don't usually have it. Usually it's up in here. There'll be a date. Obviously, this date and the motherboard date need to be nearby. They can be behind or ahead of each other because they may have stuffed and prepared a bunch of boards and put them in stock and then they waited for the cases. Or the cases were in stock and they waited for the boards, but they're near each other. So now you get a motherboard from 1979, you put it back in there. Is it original now? There's no way to tell. But when somebody gives you one that's got a service mark of 1983 on it that's been redone, it's probably not going to be the right type of motherboard in there. Because the other thing that Apple tended to not do was all the original boards and the Rev 0, Rev 1, Rev 2 boards never usually made it back into circulation. They kind of stayed. Those are the ones that on the 2 Plus you have what's called a breadboard area, which is a bunch of holes down the front. Usually the first 2 chip rows and about a third of the board are empty. And another telltale was along the sides of the Ram, you had a little black box that said, black jumpers that said 60K, 16K, 16K. That board belongs in an original machine.
They also had 4K blocks, so don't get surprised.
And if you have 4K blocks, you're doing really good.
79.
I've never seen 4K blocks except in the
Pictures, yeah.
I have a set in a box of I've got the 16K. It's the old cassette box where you flip the lid and there's a cassette in there, but except it's got 2 holes in it, and one of them has a foam block with memory jumpers in it, and then there's the cassette tape has the memory tester. So you would take your 16K jumpers, put them in there, put the chips in, run the cassette tape to make sure it's all working. And somebody put all the old stuff back in the box, so they're all there. I managed to find that.
Did any of the pluses use those jumpers? Were those
Any
all
which?
the memory jumpers? Was that
Any
only
what?
on the 2s, the original integer basic class?
Yeah, they actually used those jumpers because the first ones came out with 4K chips.
Yeah.
Even the 2
And
plus?
they knew they were going to go to 16K shortly, so that's why they did it.
By the 2 pluses,
Two plus
all you saw were
16K.
16Ks installed already.
That's
Yeah.
Because they just used the boards up.
They took out the blocks
Yeah.
together.
And then they, at this point, by about Rev 3 or Rev 4, the blocks disappeared. They just wired them. It wasn't uncommon to get an early 2 plus with them in there. They were installed by Apple. Well, again, if somebody came to you and said, "Here, this is a 2 plus, and it's got 2 plus on a lid, but I restored it back to 4K," no, didn't happen. But you still got a bunch of old cool stuff. This one. I'm not going to pass that around because it's got this flat window on here. This is what happens when you go through. This is a Mark Twain motherboard. It goes all the way through all the engineering, make the motherboard. Oopsie. More. 3 ICs. The SCSI chip, part of the SCSI logic, and the sound chip were put in the CAD program backwards. So they're on a different layer on the other side, so the part got dropped backwards. The auto router routed it backwards. So when you went to put the IC on the motherboard, pin 1 was over here, and it needed to be over here. So you probably programmed up the machine to install it. Maybe somebody spotted it and said this can't possibly work because usually the pad for pin number 1 is different. But in this case, the pad for pin number 1 is correct in the wrong position. It's indicated in the wrong position. If you put this IC down, it goes off the board. So rather than start over, you made a small board, every single wire ran.
Wow.
Forgot some capacitors on the RAM, so they add it on top. Stuff happens. And this is an example where maybe you get this 3 or 4 years later, and it's got some parts on it that the dates don't jive with when this thing should have been done. Somebody probably fixed it. Maybe there's, at some point, who knows? There might have been many of these, and if you wanted to take one home, you got to fix it. You got to do that to it.
That'll work. Is that board functional?
This board works if it's in there and I have to do something like this to it. Then it works. So it's got a. I keep threatening to figure out a way to either find someone that could put it through a reflow or build a Black & Decker reflow of it.
How many layers?
It's 4.
Oh, yeah, I might have to better nails that thing to find out what the job is.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to sit there and just keep plugging in and finding it. Something's not. I don't think it's a layer problem. I think something's not down right.
Oh.
Because it doesn't necessarily have to be bent. I've been able to apply pressure in strange places and get it to work too. It comes up like a 2C or a 2E that's just got bad ram in the lower part, or it's got garbage on it, and then it won't go any further. Any other questions on this kind of? I had originally thought it would be cool to have brought some baking soda in the blaster gun, even if it was a small compressor, and at least did a little small piece on one corner, but just couldn't get enough together, enough organization, because there was no way I could transport a compressor.
What about serial numbers on cases? How do you tell if it's the original serial number or somebody tried to fudge?
Serial numbers generally. It's a label. It's usually stuck down, and I have to say, I can get stickers off. I'm sure there's other people that get stickers off without. You can't tell, but I can tell if somebody tried to pull a sticker off because I can pull them off and make it look like I didn't pull them off. It's one of the, I know how to look. Usually, you will see lines in them, any slight picking on the corners. These machines put these darn things on very straight. It shouldn't be moved. However, that doesn't mean that if you see a line of glue around two edges, you think of putting down ceramic tile on top of wet concrete and it slides. These stickers slide. If this thing is sitting on top of something and it's hot, the sticker can slide on the glue. Generally, it only does it in one direction. So you have to be able to differentiate that kind of thing from someone peeled it up. So the glue mark the slide mark you see is going to have a perfectly uniform dust line and stuff in there, and then the other side isn't raised usually because glue still stayed with it. It just spread. It's like spread it out on bread. If it's raised up, it means someone's put a sticker over old glue and didn't make it line up. That's a different story. But again, you should also see some kind of line. But it is possible to get these off without putting lines on them. It might take you about a couple movies to watch as you sit there and move ever so closely with a fine. Get a straight razor and go for it. And then one slip and that's it. Sticker's done. Generally, that hasn't really been much of an issue because they're even the old 2 pluses and the 2s that had just a simple little label down here. It's actually a thin, it's very brittle kind of plastic the sticker's made out of. The serial number is stamped and then it's covered over with clear. Those don't peel up very easily at all without making a mess. So on a hot day you can get them slide off, but you got to do an awful lot of sliding. And then you try to put it back on, ain't gonna happen. There really isn't much of a serial number problem on these. It's the fact that you have it. What usually will happen is somebody has a low serial number baseband, put a whole bunch of stuff on it, say here it's an original. If you open it up and it's got a 2+ motherboard in it with a 2000 number on it. You know, they didn't make them back then. Oh, somebody must have upgraded it. Well, it's not a 2 then. Does it have the right keyboard on it with the raised power button? Does it have the flat one? Does the power switch have the little bat handle switch, or does it have this thing? If you find a 2 with the raised power light instead of the flush one, and a little lever for the switch, that's original. It's got this thing in it. It's been changed. Is it a fault if it's been changed? No. Those switches die fairly often.
Power supplies died all the time.
They swap them. But if you open it up and it's got a gold colored, it's got the address. I don't remember which address it is. Marianne Avenue, I think. It's not Marianne Avenue. It's the Stevens Creek Avenue Boulevard is the one. If it's got that address on it, it's about the right area.
For a 2 plus. No, for a 2E.
For a 2+.
For a 2 plus.
Or even a 2. That's the when they were in the original was a closed Good Earth restaurant building. said, in this particular thing, we don't have that much of a problem. Where it probably is more of a problem is what's inside versus what you see. But then anybody that's really wanting to do a good collector activity, I'm going to buy that because I want the case. If I'm going to put that back together as an original one. And again, there isn't anything wrong with that, although it's nicer to have a cardboard box and a case and the innards that all match. But in this day and age, you're lucky with what you get.
What's the market for these machines? I mean, the prices. What sort of prices? It really depends on
Depends on
who's offering it.
who's offering and who sees the offering at the time.
And a lot of the prices are being asked are kind of out of line right now.
Yeah.
So make sure you see 10 prices before you buy.
Unless there's something
I'm
there.
interested in selling. I have an apartment full of apples.
So you're the guy.
Well, I live in Silicon Valley. I live in Santa Clara. In fact, Tony came down to a friend's house that he was posting the house. Remember when you went to Peter Bombs?
Yeah, that was the Southwest Airlines story.
Yeah.
How he brought back there boxes on airlines. If we have to do it again, we can do it again as long as we're not transporting liquid. They have to be 3 ounces or less, right? Passenger revolt. So, no, it's totally dependent. There's some people will put up 2GS system rare, and then you see crazy bids on it. There's one card in it.
And it's a transport.
Yeah, if you want to get rid of a bunch of stuff, that's one way to do it. Put it all on a picture and just put something on top that everybody wants. Because then you won't feel guilty about having to dump it, because someone else will take it. You don't know where it went after that. But if you want to make it simpler on everybody else, just sell that one item. If it's easier to ship.
You might actually get more money because having to pay for shipping for a 2GS.
Well, you'll actually have people say, I don't want the rest of it, keep it.
Well, like that $500 of GSX, or
Yeah.
$550 from Alaska. Eventually, the guy was like, "Yes, I will just ship the card if you just want the card."
Yeah, you start to see the answers on eBay because everybody asks. You just I'll just ship it. Or
And the first
somebody will
thing-
want the system and they'll want the zip card and the monitor, for example.
If the description doesn't have the zip in it, the price will be nice and low until somebody recognizes it and mentions it. Because everyone else is waiting.
Yeah.
But that's also why it's good to know what hardware looks like in a badly done photo.
Or the people that say WAS GSs are rare.
It's the usual. I get a URL sent to me and says, "What card is that?" Because I can see a corner of a card and most of the time tell you what it is.
What's funny is we all ask, what is what it looks like in my... Tony shows up like 3 days later, bam, tells you the guy's name who made it.
And what mood he was in on the day that
What kind of card is this?
What it's worth. See if it's. See how much I got. A few more minutes or anything.
Is that a 2GS card?
What? That's a Super 2.
Oh, Super 2.
It's that's in between the GS and the 2E, right?
Oh, never heard
Tony?
of that before.
Super 2 is in between 2E and 2GS?
No, Super 2 is a 2E.
Oh.
Prototype 2E.
So it didn't have any long place for a long card, right?
They're all long. The green is the
Card
memory
can't-
card.
It's okay if the card comes over the...
We always
Oh,
like
yeah, they all do.
except for the disc 2.
Yeah, it was a
They
short
all have
card.
the little cut down.
In fact, I saw somebody put one of those in backwards once in a Boss's case computer.
Oh, because it'll reach, yeah.
Yeah, because they had lots of room behind the motherboard, so you could put it in backwards.
Stacks of.
Yeah.
This storage unit's now gone.
Yeah.
I didn't get rid of anything,
What, you were living with it?
basically.
Flipped his bed upside down.
Freaking mess.
Yeah, and you didn't even fill the garage up with it, because you turned that into your workshop.
Turn that into something, yes. I started making model RC aircraft. But I had an 11 by 24 storage unit that was just crammed and jammed. It is not my intention to get rid of anything. The goal is to go through and, yeah, I know, I see those. Commodores. The goal is to go through and get a collection of one of everything that may be there, you know, and then what needs to go elsewhere for other people to complete similar goals, and let the stuff filter on as I go. You know, people thought I was nuts every time something came across, I just grab it. But I hate to think of how much money I spent on that stupid storage unit since 1990. I could have built one in the backyard that held the stuff.
The only problem with those Commodores is there's an 80% chance neither work.
I know. There, see super serial cards? There.
They're rare. Funny to kill the market.
There's 3 of those tubs full of super serial cards each.
I've got a box of just 2
This
controller cards.
thing's probably the most valuable thing in this picture. When I saw that sign in the auto parts store in 1987 that said effective November, whatever the heck, in 1987, these are no longer available. I looked at the shelf, I looked at the shopping cart, because they were like $1 a can.
They were cheap, and now they're.
I wanted to sell them out before they came.
Yeah. Because otherwise they have to handle it.
Oh, yeah.
I still have a few. All of this stuff is semi-sorted out now. All in the house, or under the house.
You have a basement?
No, external, covered over garage area. Inside crates and whatnot. It needs to get gone through so we can.
There's always something. Got one of those boxes.
But you have a computer in it.
I got one that must have come in. A monitor.
Someday Sony's going to start selling super serial cards 3 at a time, hoping that there's one that'll work for them. Sold as is.
Graphics tablets.
You want to use a wall of disk 2s on that?
Yeah, it's in here somewhere. This is a keyboard 707.
Just jump over.
That big giant keyboard that you can program and plug in through the joystick port.
That'd be neat to see one of these.
TTL is just hard as nails.
Gator box and an Atwater Kent radio. Quick, which is worth more, the Atwater Kent or the Gator box? Or the Paper Tiger printer that's under it?
The Atwater Kent.
What is a gator box?
Ethernet to local talk.
Oh.
Those are the industrial enterprise level ones.
I've got all those keyboards.
Was that box named Instruction Hayes Stack? Is that?
There's Twiggy floppy disks, shrink wrap boxes. I think it's a Mockingbird. There's another Gator box. The other side of the Commodores.
They need some 110 volts strategically applied to them.
Here's the speaker for the radio. More serial cards.
Is Zoltec still around?
Not in the same manner, but yes. Actually, I realized I still had control of the allelect.com domain, and there's a bunch of links out there that have allelect.com/a2.html or index.a2.html, so I'm just going to end up pointing that to 16 sectors without, so it's still a valid URL. There's all kinds of pictures on there. Anybody ever wants to
Thanks for putting those up. They were a lot of fun to cruise through.
Some of the 2C prototype stuff that didn't end up here that folks were curious about.
Is the 17-inch or the 12-inch TC monitor out?
Yeah, the monitor's on here. There's a brick. Notice it's not been broken open. That's because it was an engineering sample. Here's the monitor. It's not evident until we get to the end here. So you can see that the monitor is bigger than the stand.
Yeah. So did they actually do a short run of those, or how?
I think there might have been a few, but a little bigger than it's supposed to be.
Where's your AST Vision Plus?
Notice that there's no lines on this power supply.
Yeah.
The cord is flat instead of rounded.
Yeah. What does the flat cord indicate?
Just they didn't use a round cord.
On
But
the
it's
outside.
molded. But it's all molded in there, and it's the right color.
The production ones are all rounded.
Yeah. See, nothing moves anywhere. There it has a sample on it. The cord's even still wrapped just like it came, because you probably looked at it and said, yep, okay.
That huge hump in the transformer must not have been switching supply.
No, it's all analog. The switcher is here. There's the monitor in front, on top of a 2C. As you can see, it's just as wide as the...
What is it, color?
Said it was monochrome.
It's a green monitor. And then the infamous Duo 3.5.
That monitor work with 2C or 2E?
It's a composite monitor. Just works with whatever it's plugged into.
Great with VCRs.
Well, it's an Apple IIc LCD is what
I was thinking about that. I haven't seen them go for $150, $200. They're not that good.
Well, I know the quality of the video is not good.
And
But
with
somebody
that,
wants it, but, you know.
it depends, you know, most of the ones that are out there are thrashed, so if you've got one
It's in good shape.
that's in good shape.
Actually not, because they just don't come up too often that I can remember.
Did you end up with that whole system that was in the bag? Is that the one? Yeah, so you still have it. That was in good shape.
Yeah, if anyone's seen one in real life, then.
That's what I did. That's what I did. You got find somebody who's never seen it.
Well, occasionally Steve will decide he's tired of paying rent on some of his storage things, and Peter often will go over and help him clear it out. Peter and his brother go over and
Still?
yeah.
So Steve is still paying rent on this stuff?
Oh yeah, he's got storage lockers all over.
That's where that software and more guy keeps getting stuff from?
I don't know what happens with the stuff.
Is this wired?
Since Peter's, you know, a family friend with Steve.
Yeah.
He often gets.
It happens again.
Well, again, I don't usually find out about it until after it's
Afterwards.
over. Although when I told Peter of this event, he said he was going to try to go through the stuff that he has, you know, in storage and see if he could bring anything back. And I called him the day before I left. He said, you know, he just hadn't had a chance to get to it. He's got some mental problems because of his stroke. He had a stroke about 12 years ago. So he just doesn't remember some unless he
Keep pushing
on
on.
top of
Yeah.
it. It doesn't happen. And I just didn't have the time.
No. Anything else? Anybody? What's the next?
AST Vision Plus.
What about it?
You got one?
I didn't bring any with me. about a couple hundred of them sitting there. Gotta be calibrated and whatnot, sorry.
You know, if you just PayPal them some money,
It's just last 4 digits it cost.
just explain to them it's a tip. I just want a good seat.
Get good seat. Find the, yeah, there we go. Try. Okay, let's test the laser.
Is that the laser cutter?
Yep.
So many of those things.
That's why I didn't get down here for the Naked DOS demo in time, because somebody was asking about flying dog houses. For what it's worth, let's see if we can get it down here if you're interested. I got some flyers upstairs too.
The Naked DOS stuff is pretty cool. You need to see it.
Of course, I get all the darn people building them. I want to see the flying ones. Got a whole bunch of videos I've got to upload.
Is it kind of like remote control helicopters? You spend a lot more time building them than flying them.
Yeah.
Is the camera ready? Damn, it's already done. It's another $100.
All the videos I've seen where you got it.
It's a UFO.
Well, that's identified.
Yeah, it's not very good.
Very unidentified.
Even better, it's terrible.
Let's see if this one shows up.
How do you make a fire?
Put a big enough engine on it.
Like a it's just like a helicopter.
Somebody had a good photo or a video of it.
Well, it uses the handles as a tail. And the body itself is the land.
That's incredible. Although if somebody sent me this link, I'd say, no, that's fake.
Until
he comes to your door.
No dig in this. Yeah, he's here. He's sitting right there.
That's some good torque. Just floats right off.
The wind station.
And the wings in the middle.
Ah, so it's kind of hidden.
Yeah.
Is the engine front flowing back over the wing?
Looks like a GTO.
You make flying
Shirt tape on.
He has a flying race car.
He goes to
You did the aircraft carrier yet? Or?
Did you make it flying after two trips?
It's coming. It's the right shape. It'll fly.
It'll fly. Excellent.
The next Apple II will fly away.
Thanks a lot, Tony. Nice.